Sarah Poet. Thanks for checking out video number 3 in this series, Gender Equity Approached Differently. I am talking to those in the workplace, in leadership, those who are contemplating this hot and heavy topic of gender in the workplace. And I am giving you a sampling in this vlog series of how we can shift the language, the focus topic, so that we can actually have a safer way to talk about gender, and also how we can move beyond the topic of gender in the workplace, because we know that the topic of gender in the workplace right now is tripping us up. I would say that that is true. We don't know how to talk about it. We have more HR issues. There's, a lot of hurt that happens when there is actually a gender related or like a feminine masculine related workplace issue that I have just seen over and over again in myself and in others, that we can actually very, very much mitigate a lot of pain, a lot of costly mistakes in the workplace if we are open to talking about this differently. So I'm giving you the introduction here to talk about this differently. And then, of course, I am available to consult with your company, do some leadership trainings, and open this further. And I will say that the companies that are willing to have this conversation right now, even if behind the scenes, like, you don't need to blast this language that's different, this masculine, feminine language. You don't need to like blast it on your website, right? It's like, the place of it will just sort of, time will tell, right? But having this aha in your team's toolkit is incredibly helpful and incredibly innovative, because it just opens up the realization and the awareness beyond just everything being about gender. It is not about gender. We are making things about gender that are not actually about gender. So, okay, video 3 here is about improving workflow with masculine and feminine archetypes. I love this topic. I talked about it in my TEDx, which I did in 2019. You can find that at sarahpoet.com. And I had a slide with a visual that someone had made for me, and I don't have that slide. So today I'm going to be talking with my hands to illustrate this concept. But you can imagine that this is a flow. It's like a circular sort of flow where I've told you in these other videos, we all have feminine and masculine. And the traditional workplace valued what? Valued masculine qualities. Be assertive, push, be productive all the time, have all the answers, and there's a lot of burnout in that model. That model leads to a lot of burnout. I was a 32-year-old with very severe adrenal fatigue because I had pushed myself, to climb the career ladder, and took on a lot of masculine characteristics. I told that story in my TEDx as well. So, as an entrepreneur, as one human with both masculine and feminine qualities in me, because we all have masculine and feminine within us, masculine, feminine, like archetypal qualities, behavioral traits. This is not about gender, folks, not about gender. It's about the behaviors, the qualities, and what we value in terms of how we use our energy. What we value in terms of how we use our energy. So, okay, like I said, we see a lot of quitting and burnout in the workplace, and an increase in gender issues. But the way I'm going to describe this topic, you're going to see that it's very neutral, or can be very neutral. So what does healthy workflow look like to you? And okay, so to avoid burnout, we can adopt this healthy workflow, and to avoid our employees going into burnout, we can adopt this. So I'm going to stop the share because this is where I don't actually have a slide for this concept, but it's circular. Okay. So if we all have feminine and masculine within us, then we know that we're going to have periods of high activity, of productivity, of really getting things done, of like, top performance, of being very decisive, very powerful, being very extroverted. But we can't sustain by being in that energy all the time. It's like that is where burnout will happen. So if we only value extroverted, masculine, action-oriented qualities in the workplace or in ourselves and our entrepreneurial lives, then we will burn out, because that is an overemphasis on that driven nature, which is an archetypal masculine quality. I'm not saying that women or any gendered human cannot be driven. I'm saying when we are in that drive, it's like a yang quality. It is the like the force, the push, the extroversion. And that is a masculine archetypal quality. It's beautiful when used appropriately and when used in balance and flow. So before that, actually, before we drive, before we create, there's an opportunity to bring in more of what I would call the archetypal feminine. So obviously, before you're going to, like create something, present something, you're going to have a period of creation. So before I made these videos, I sat down, and the first thing that I did was took a big pause. Okay. Because I had come from other meetings and I knew I wanted to do this today, but I allowed myself a little bit of space. So creating that pause and that space was like a spaciousness, and the spaciousness and the rest, the not doing, is actually feminine. We talked about value in video 2. Not doing has not been valued in the workplace that was built on productivity and profit, right? Understandable, but we're evolving. So I paused, and then what I did was like got out the markers and a blank sheet of paper and did like a mind map. Like, what are all of the things that I could talk about in this blog series? And I got creative with it. I used color. I used non-linear patterning. So I used a piece of paper and I used circles, and I was kind of all over the place, right? Non-linear is feminine, okay? And by doing that, by creating the space for that, new ideas come in. This is very important. If we overwork or run down or ignore the feminine archetype in our practices and in our lives, it's actually very, very much going to squelch creativity and what is possible in terms of new ideas. I will also say that if we squelch, collaboration and like the sharing of ideas in a non-linear way, that will also squelch creativity, which will also inhibit your company's profits and profitability, because you'll stagnate. You won't have new ideas to then bring forward. So the feminine incorporates this pause, this like rest, this spaciousness, and then gets creative and brings forward creative ideas, okay? In this like consideration, it's like this, the melting pot of ideas, okay? I would say that those are feminine archetypes of behaviors, not gendered, not gendered. Okay, we need to move away from seeing these things as gendered. When I say feminine, it's like, oh, by the way, I'm going to insert this right here. in a nonlinear way, right? I'm going to let myself be nonlinear for a moment. If we all, including male-bodied people and male-bodied leaders, can bravely say, okay, when I do this, I'm actually exercising something that's feminine. It creates more acceptance. It creates more like just, yeah, acceptance, right? Of all things feminine on the planet, because we see that there's actually a lot of value and economic value. If we don't create space for ideas, then we can't innovate, then we can't make the money. So it's like, yes, male leaders begin to, embrace that this is actually what's happening, whether you call it feminine, masculine or not. This is actually what's happening if you're doing this. Okay, so here's what's exciting. So the feminine, this is what's circular about it. The feminine is like, okay, I'm resting, I'm gestating, right? And then I'm like bringing this forward. There's this creativity, there's these ideas. Okay, so then what she's going to do, I'm using pronouns. It gets a little tricky. Just bear with me. Okay. So what the feminine does then, like the feminine energetic in any person, is like, oh, now I want these ideas to come forward. I want these ideas to come forward. So here's where we're in Chinese like acupuncture. You hear yin yang, or like those are words for that energy in that culture, and any words we choose to use. So the feminine's gestating, it's in the yin. Okay, and it's coming up, and then it's like, well, now we want the ideas to come forward. We want something to happen. We want this thing to birth. We want like the action to get behind it, right? So we need the masculine. We need the masculine to like hear, oh, okay, here's all the ideas. Now, discernment, decisiveness, which idea am I going to bring forth? And then the masculine begins to bring that forth. Okay, here's the need, discerns, decides the strategy, decides like all of the logical, linear, like the calculations, the considerations that need to be made, and is like, okay, I'm going to do it. Okay, and then puts the energy behind, the yang energy, the doing energy, puts it behind and moves it forward. So they are complementary. Do you see this? Like, of course, this is how I would say we should all be behaving relationally, regardless of gender, right? We give, we take, we listen, we act. These are relational qualities as well, but this relationship exists within us each, in our work habits, and it also exists within the culture of our workplaces. So if your work culture overvalues the yang, the doing, the productivity, the always on the go, then you're going to be missing out. Like I said, actually, I want to tell a little story here really quickly before I finish this video. I was talking with a male CEO, and he said, I know that hiring super innovative women is my company's advantage. And I said, oh, tell me more about that. Like, why? Well, how do you know that? And he said, because that's where the creativity and the ideas come from. If I hire these women and actually give them space to get really excited and really creational in their ideas for moving the company forward, he said, without a doubt, if I get out of their way and provide that space, then our company is leaps and bounds above other companies. He said, I have no idea why companies resist hiring women or listening to women, because that is where the ideas come from. Now, the gender, like, what does gender have to do with it? What does masculine and feminine have to do with it? Obviously, it overlaps, right? But what he's speaking to is allowing space for a feminine energetic to be non-linear and really creational. And the ideas that come from that group of women, when his company carries them out and implements them and puts them into action, he is leaps and bounds above his competitors in the same industry by millions of dollars. Okay. So this is, like I said, when you have this understanding in your back pocket, it's an aha that allows you to strategize in a way that other companies are not yet doing. So if you would like me to bring this information to your team, bring you through exercises about what you value as a company and how you implement these things in flow, and I can also really lead some honest discussions about what people have felt has been valued in the workplace in the past, where they'd like to go, and really get some valuable information for you, for your company, in a safe environment. So you can reach out to me at sarahpoet.com/reconciliation, and that is where my offerings are for organizations. Thank you so much for watching. This is really fun for me to talk with you about this. And like I said before, this is the innovative information that the companies of the future will understand. So when you're ready to innovate, give me a call.